month ago, Cedar Rapids voters approved extending the 1-cent sales tax for another 10 years in order to fund road repairs. Anyone who drives a car knows what terrible shape many of our streets are in. After 2008, necessary funds were diverted to flood recovery. Displaced families had to be taken care of. Flooded out homes and businesses had to be rebuilt. And so street repair kind of took a back seat. But the voters decided that our streets could no longer be ignored. They needed attention. Well, the church gives us the Advent season every year to help focus our attention on needed repairs to our lives. The second Sunday of Advent introduces us to the person of John the Baptist. He spoke to the powerful and the insignificant, the rich and the poor alike, urging them to reform their lives, to fill in all of those rough spots and potholes by turning away from sin, from the temptations to greed and selfishness and unabashed power, to consider the ways of God, to care for the poor and the needy. But often his voice went unheard, or at best unheeded. People seemed to be content with the way things were, with the status quo. Fixing their lives involved too much work, required too much change. And while a few listened and followed his advice, most ignored him. And so he became that lone voice, almost like an echo in an empty room. But he kept preaching. He did not stop. And he proclaimed the message of the coming of the kingdom. He knew the importance of the coming of the Messiah. John was the bridge between the old and the new. He was a prophet in the long line of all those Old Testament prophets, like Isaiah and Elijah. They too preached God's message, but oftentimes went unheard. But John also pointed the finger forward to the promise of God's coming, to the promise of the Messiah. As I reflect on who the prophets were in my life, on those who pointed me to God, I think first of my parents. But I also recall the many priests who served in my parish when I was growing up. And I remember in a very special way the many dedicated presentation sisters who taught me in school. They were wonderful women, well-educated and dedicated teachers. Next to my parents, I owe to them my initial formation in the faith and even my ultimate vocation as a priest. I feel blessed then to be able to work with Sister Joellen, one of those same presentation sisters who is now our social justice minister here at the parish. Other presentations in the area include Sister Annette Kestel, who is the pastoral associate at St. Elizabeth's, and Sister Ann Jackson, who serves at Prairie Woods. I am guessing that many of you probably have similar fond memories of religious sisters. If you grew up in Cedar Rapids, you knew that the Mercies have certainly left their mark on our schools and our health system. Mount Mercy and Mercy Hospital still bear the presence of Mercy Sisters on their staffs. There were BVMs at St. Pat's and St. Jude's, and Notre Dames from Omaha who taught at St. Ludmilla's. Here at St. Pius, Our school was initially staffed by the Franciscan sisters from La Crosse, Wisconsin. They are just up the road from us now at Prairie Woods. And we are still blessed to have among us Sister Rita Hires, who served as principal for many years here. And we also have Sister LaDonna from the Milwaukee Franciscans as a member of our parish. Our connection to religious order priests and brothers is probably much more limited. And yet we have to recall that our current Pope is a Jesuit, and our two former archbishops were Benedictines. Today is the national collection for the Religious Retirement Fund for Religious. We are asked to offer prayers and financial support for the more than 34,000 sisters, brothers, and priests in religious congregations who are over the age of 70. Many of these selfless women and men continue to minister into their 80s and some even into their 90s, doing whatever they can to serve the people of God. Others of them are in very frail health and in need of great medical assistance. They spent their lives serving others for very, very small stipends. And their sacrifices then, on behalf of others, have left their religious communities without the adequate money to support retirement and elder care. As little as 10 years ago, there were about equal numbers of religious who were still active in ministry and those who were retired. 10 years ago. But today, there are only about 20% of them who are still in active ministry, asked to support the other 80% who can no longer serve. And so I ask three things of you today. First, read the excellent articles that are included in this weekend's bulletin. Second, pray for these dedicated women and men in their golden years as they continue to offer their prayers for your benefit. And third, if you are able, please support them financially by using the special envelope that was included in your monthly budget packet.